Alrighty. Good Vach, happy Chanukah, and it's a good Chodesh, a new month, the first day of the month of Tevis. So we continue with the Sikha that we began on Thursday or Friday, Thursday. So in our prayers, we give thanks for the story of Hanukkah, for the military victory, and according to the way the Rebbe explains the words of our sages in the prayers, is that we don't make mention for the miracle of the oil, which of course is a huge question. Why not? Especially, especially um, when the Talmud, when it's asked what is Hanukkah, it actually leaves out the battle and the miracle of the battle, and only mentions about the flask of oil that one remained pure and it lit for 8 days. So um, leaves out the war completely. Why would that happen? So he explained that what is really Hanukkah? Hanukkah is a battle for the soul of the Jewish people. Purim was a battle for the body. It was a decree completely to annihilate every Jew. That's the story of Purim. That's the story of the Holocaust, likewise, right? You have it in every generation. But the Greeks were different. They liked the Jews. Hey, they thought they were, pretty interesting. They have wisdom. They have an age-old, uh, customs and so on. So they didn't mind. Everybody has to have their wisdom. Everybody has to have their customs. But what they minded is that Jews gave it something that was holy, that was beyond logic. To serve God beyond logic. That's what they were fighting against. So that's the main thing of Hanukkah. The main thing of Hanukkah is the idea of the battle to save Jewish life. The the and again, not the observance, but the spirit of Jewish life, which is connection to God. That's the spirit of Jewish life. Everything we do, we connect to God. Since we connect to God through what we do in a mitzvah, we connect to each other deeply, profoundly. That's what Hanukkah is. And specifically, it's expressed that miracle in light of the menorah. Because light is what the Kabbalists, the sages use as a metaphor for something that is beyond the human condition, that a connection to the divine. Ner mitzvah Torah, or as King Solomon says, the the candle of the mitzvah and the light of Torah. So that's so therefore the miracle specifically happened with that. And that the power of the light of the Jew, the fact that it's a transcendent light that comes from the divine beyond the human condition, is truly what we celebrate. The victory is only a prelude right? To the victory of light over darkness, over the divine, over, human. And in this case, yeah, human, right? So therefore, when the Talmud asks, what is Hanukkah? What is the essence of it? You know, it just mentions after we won the battle, this is what happened. We found a flask of oil. It was enough to light for 1 day. It lit for 8 days. So specifically with oil, specifically with creating light, that the light of the Jewish people will never be stamped out. Not by the Egyptians in Egypt, not by the Greeks, not by the after that was the Persians, Babylonians. Won't stamp it out. That's what we're celebrating. Okay. And therefore, there's no mention of the military victory. But then becomes the question, why in our prayers we only mention the military victory? We don't mention the miracle of the lights because prayer is about thanksgiving. Prayer is about thanksgiving. And if we would put there about the miracle of the lights, that would overshadow the miracle of the military victory miracle. It would overshadow because what is Hanukkah? Who am I? What's the Jew? The Jew is a spiritual being that experiences life in a body. That's so much, right? That's who the Jew is. So when we would when we would mention together with the military victory, we would overshadow it. And we need to give thanks for material well-being. So therefore, the in our prayers, we give thanks only to the military victory. Mhm. All right. In our minds, maybe it wouldn't be, but the Rebbe explains it as Chassidus is what is. So, what is Hanukkah? The Talmud asks. So, again, it doesn't mention the military victory because Excuse me. Because it's only a prelude for us having a victory over their desire to to tamper with who we are, right? They want to tamper with who we are, our divine connection. So that light of who we are is much greater than anything else. And therefore, it can't go together because we would lose sight of the military victory. Now, we might not personally lose sight, but in concept, we would. In concept, we would lose sight of the military victory. Now, when it comes to understanding what Chanukah is, that's okay. But when it comes to thank God, even something that's a means to an end, like winning the battle, is a means to an end. What's the end? That I could live a life of a Jew. That's the end. In other words, the end isn't winning the military victory, because that would suggest that just living any kind of life is, the goal in life. As long as you're okay, as long as you're healthy, as long as you're okay, right? That's what it would suggest. But the fact is, um, that's someone who's really off his rocker here. Okay. In any case, so the lesson we learn from this is that we have a material world we have to thank God for. But we should not think that that's what defines us, and that's where our strength comes from. Our strength comes from our soul, that's one with God, and therefore we shouldn't allow any Hanukkah gives us rather the strength that we light up our soul in such a way that the body doesn't take up space. That's what Hanukkah is. Meaning, what does it mean the body doesn't take up space? As what I want and what I need for my body to live is not really what I need. I want that. Well, we need it, but what we need primarily is to be a spiritual being, a light, to illuminate the light within us for ourselves, which will illuminate my body and animal soul, and to then illuminate my surroundings. Now, what does that mean? How does that play itself out? That's a good question. That's a very good question. Um, I guess what it'll play itself out that we'll see that the body is only a tool and nothing more. A tool for the mitzvah, a tool for your purpose to be fulfilled, right? And your soul is what is guiding you. The light of your soul, that's what's guiding you. That's what's touching you. That's what is moving you. So a week ago today is when we found out the news, the horrific news of what happened. So in Chabad, we didn't allow the body, which was fearful, right? The body has fear because the body is all about survival. So if I let the body talk, then all I'm thinking about is how to survive. And when you have fear, that becomes obviously a huge issue. How do you survive? But if you're illuminated by your soul, so you're not looking, survival will come from the illumination of your soul. You don't have to, you won't be frightened because your soul's not frightened. Your soul is bound up with the divine, and therefore won't be frightened. I think that's a perfect, way to appreciate this. Any questions, any comments?